Say hello, Alley Cat. This is the kitten that I told you my grandmother asked me to come get, and she pesters me. Okay. Good morning. Today is Monday, November 4th, 2024. And we're going to be reading Isaiah chapter 9. Good morning, Miss Trudy. Switched out my coffee cup this morning. This is an elephant. It's from the Knoxville Zoo. We went there. I guess it was maybe 2020 when we went. Good morning, Mona. This is Alley Cat. She's pestering me to no end. You see yourself? No, you don't care. All right. Please, no. I'm going to have to do something with this cat. Because it's not that I don't want her in my lap. It's just that she still has her claws. And my fleshly legs are good for kneading, I think. So let me put her in the house. I'm wearing my Valentine's sweatshirt today, but I don't care because love is good. It never goes out of season, right? Okay. One last thing, maybe. I don't know if it's my last thing or not. I'm not making any promises about the rapture dream. I posted a picture on my Facebook that came up. The verse, well, I was reminded of the verse this morning, and so then when I went to look up the verse, this image came up with it, and it was perfect. It's a hand stretched out like that, and it's the verse from Isaiah 41:10, where God says, I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And that's yet something else that would be connected to my dream where we saw the hand. Anyway, we're going to read Isaiah chapter 9. This is a great chapter. And I'm sure Miss Trudy already knows that because she's probably read it. I have too, but I'm just saying. Okay. We're all women here. Let's just say a quick little prayer from Psalm 19, okay? Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer, in Jesus. Amen. All right. So, Isaiah chapter 9. That a hand is perfect. Yeah. Well, there's a lot to this chapter. Okay. Nevertheless, this is the New King James Version. I'm sorry I keep switching, but I happen to like this version a little better for this chapter. Okay, nevertheless, the gloom will not be upon her who is distressed, as when at first he lightly esteemed the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward more heavily oppressed her, by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan in the Galilee of the Gentiles. So, we find out in chapter 8, and it mentions it a little bit in chapter 7, that the Assyrians, who Judah made alliance with, will in fact come in and invade. But they first go through the northern kingdom, which is in the Galilee area, Zebulun and Naphtali, Ephraim, etc. But here's a beautiful verse. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. Here we have a mingling of present and future. Although this area is about to be invaded by Assyria. Good morning, Miss Connie. We are promised that a light will shine forth from there first. They are the first to be invaded, and they will be the first to receive this light, which we know is a prophecy of the coming Messiah. Remember, John chapter 1, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful chapters, if not the most beautiful chapter in all the Bible, where it talks about the light shining in the darkness. Verse 3, you have multiplied the nation and increased its joy. They rejoice before you according to the joy of harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you have broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. Referring back to Gideon, I think. For every warrior's sandal from the noisy battle, and garments rolled in blood, will be used for burning and fuel of fire. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice, from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. All right, let's stop for a minute, because again, we have a mingling. This time it's a mingling of future and future, meaning it is prophesying the coming Messiah. For unto us a child is born. This is important because to note that a child is a human being, right? So a child will be born, but it's also, he reiterates, a son is given. So it's not just that it's a male child being born, but a son, capital S, is given, the Son of God. And he's not just being born, he is being given to us by God the Father. And his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. No, they did not call him that when they hollered for him to come here. But as we know, in biblical times, and these biblical names represented the characteristics of that person. And those are the characteristics of this son that is being given. So we have a prophetic word concerning the coming of the Messiah, and then it goes even beyond that into what is still yet our future, which is his millennial reign. Good morning, Miss Linda. So, his government, there will be no end. That is still yet to come. That will happen when he comes back at the end of the tribulation period. His foot sets on the Mount of Olives. He goes in and he takes his rightful place on the throne of David and as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And there will never be another one. it will last forever. You've got the 1,000 years, but then it extends even beyond into the new Jerusalem, the new heavens, and the new earth. Yes, you are live with me. So that's beautiful. But also, this light shining into the darkness. And there will be joy. Now, we know that when Jesus was born, the heavens rejoiced. There was the angelic host proclaiming it to the shepherds. There was rejoicing among those who knew. But in general, most people didn't know what had happened, right? And so this joy is still yet to come. When Jesus does finally come back, he's already conquered death. He's already conquered sin. And now he's going to come back and rid the world of all the wickedness. So let's move on to verse 8, because now we're skipping back to Isaiah's future. The Lord sent a word against Jacob, and it has fallen on Israel. All the people will know. Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria. Ephraim was the primary, it was like the largest tribe or region of the northern kingdom. And the capital was Samaria. Who say in pride and arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will replace them with cedars. Therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of reason against him, and spur his enemies on. Let's stop for a minute. Do you all recall this passage that I just read, Isaiah in chapter 9, verse 10, being recited here in America, September 12th, 2001, by Tom Daschle? I think he was a Senate Majority Leader at the time. He gave this little speech. It was intended to be a morale booster for America and the American people after what had happened the day before with September 11th. And he quoted this. But not only did he quote this, but a year later, John Edwards quoted it. And then again, in February of 2009, Barack Obama quoted it. Let's go back and read it again. The bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will replace them with cedars. This particular passage is talking about how Israel was saying, they say in their pride and arrogance of heart, okay, we have been struck, but we're going to rebuild better. We're going to make Israel great again. And they did it with pride in their heart and arrogance, not calling upon the Lord, because it was the Lord who issued judgment upon them. And instead of repenting and calling upon the Lord, they said, it doesn't matter that this happened, we're going to come back better. We're going to rebuild and we're going to make it stronger. Does that sound at all familiar to anybody? Okay, so let's move on to verse 12. The Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with an open mouth. For all his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. So, even though he has promised that a light will shine in the darkness of this region when Messiah is born, For the here and now, at this time, for Isaiah, the anger is still there. The judgment is still coming. Okay? So even though they have a promise of the light, a promise of the child being born, and a son being given, that is not yet. For the here and now, at that time, anger and judgment is still on its way. And what does it say? His hand is stretched out still. What is it with this hand being stretched out? There's definitely a message from the Lord here, because it keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. I just mentioned it before I started reading. Only the hand that we saw stretched out was his righteous right hand that will shield and protect us and carry us through. But what is that song? Oh, do you all remember that old country song, Daddy's Hands? Daddy's hands were soft and kind when I was crying. Daddy's hands were hard as steel when I done wrong. Well, that's pretty much what it is here too, right? They're soft and kind when you're crying. Those who call upon him, who repent, who seek his peace, will receive it. But those who do wrong can be sure to have discipline. You know? Verse 13. For the people do not turn to him who strikes them, nor do they seek the Lord of hosts. So even though they're getting a spanking, they're still being defiant. Saying, I'll take your spanking, but you can't make me do what I don't want to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do. Therefore, the Lord will cut off head and tail from Israel, palm branch and bulrush in one day. The elder and honorable, he is the head. The prophet who teaches lies, he is the tail. For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and those who are led by them are destroyed. Therefore the Lord will have no joy in their young men, nor have mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Again, that's the second time it said that. His hand is still stretched out. Oh, thank you, Miss Linda. Verse 18. For wickedness burns as the fire. It shall devour the briars and thorns, and kindle in the thickets of the forest. They shall mount up like rising smoke. Through the wrath of the Lord of hosts, the land is burned up, and the people shall be as fuel for the fire. No man shall spare his brother, and he shall snatch on the right hand and be hungry. He shall devour on the left hand and not be satisfied. Every man shall eat the flesh of his own arm. Now there's an image for you. Manasseh shall devour Ephraim, and Ephraim Manasseh. Together they shall be against Judah. Wow. When you think about these prophecies that have been given in present day about what's coming to America, I feel like it's being described right here. Henry Gruver, Dimitri Duduman, countless others of what is coming to America. And we know that when this happens, people are going to be desperate. They will be desperate. There will be no... America's always the first to help. But this will be such a dire situation. It's every man for himself. And this is, of course, describing the northern kingdom. And then the northern kingdom will all turn against Judah, which is the southern kingdom. Um, verse, continuing on with 21. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Third time, he said it 3 times, God's hand is stretched out in judgment. And that is the end of Isaiah chapter 9. Is it related to America? Can you see similarities? Is it just me? But we've got the quoting of quoting of Isaiah 9:10 right after 9/11. 3 times has it been quoted by leaders of this nation. And Isaiah also tells us right before that it is spoken in pride and arrogance. And we know what that looks like. We know what the pride and arrogance means. There were people returning to churches after 9/11. People went into churches. People were, coming together and helping each other. But there remained, and then there rose up even higher, an American spirit, an American pride that we're going to put a boot in your butt. And we're going to come back stronger. And we're still saying that even today, despite the fact that we are killing our most innocent. We're not only thinking it's okay to kill them, but we demand the right to do so. And celebrate it. And we dare say, God bless the USA? That is a mockery. North against South. There you go, Mona. And Miss Trudy says, verse 21. Let's see. Manasseh. Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me read what else you said. New Living Translation, New King James seem opposite in verses 12 and 17. One angry, one wanting people to come to him. Really? What can you explain what you mean by that? Because it seemed like I remembered reading the New Living Translation, and it said something about, instead of saying his hand is stretched out still, it says something about his fist coming down. And that's kind of how I read it. This is not him stretching out his hand to, here, let me help you up. He's stretching out his hand to strike them. That's the way I understood it. And given the context, I think that's probably what it means. He's stretching out to strike. Now, we know him as stretching out as what we talked about yesterday. For those who love him. Fist poised to strike. Yeah, I kind of read it to be the same, even though it's worded differently. Based upon the context here. Now, to his bride, soft and kind when I was crying, to those who are seeking him, seeking refuge in him, it is stretched out as a comfort. But considering the context of this chapter, I believe it is a fist striking. It is that swat on the butt, so to speak. But even harsher than that. A swat on the butt isn't that bad. This is God's angry judgment. And who was it that wrote that thing? Wrote some sermon years and years and years ago. He may have been a Puritan. Or he may have been sometime much later, like in the 1800s or something. I don't remember, but it was the title of the sermon is something along the lines of the sinner in the hands of a righteous God or something. It is not a pleasant place to be. I'll have to look that up. I don't remember. Sorry. I always bring up things that just pop into my head. And I can't remember the details. But anyway, that's Isaiah chapter 9 for today. But there's hope. There's light coming. The light came in Jesus. He conquered sin and death. And there's light still coming, where he will set up his kingdom and we will finally be ruled in righteousness. Oh, okay. All right, so that's it. Thank you all. Let me know if there's anything else. And you all have a beautiful day. Let's see if I can get this turned off here. Oh, thank you. And thank you all for contributing as well. Bye-bye.